VLR.
Welcome to the Saturday Night Cigar Lounge.
It is a very nice Saturday night here in actually the kind of warm state of Texas and warm Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. This is Saturday Night Cigar Lounge. I am your host, Taylor. It hits 70 degrees here. I'm not exactly sure what to make of that, except for that winter in Texas is always fun. And I'm very happy to be joined tonight by, well, I guess we're now calling him an independent conservative. That would be Jimmy LaSalvia. How are you doing tonight, Jimmy?
I'm doing great, Taylor. Thanks so much for having me. And I just have to tell you, it is so cold in Washington. The wind is blowing, it's freezing cold, but I am sitting by a fire in my living room talking to you, so it's at least warm here where I'm at.
There we go. And as Prairie Dog in the chat has said, he said that he is sitting watching the Dallas Stars face the Minnesota Wild right now on TV. And I would be lying if I said I didn't have that on behind me. So maybe we need Chris Barron here to chime in on hockey, right? Or are you a big hockey fan or no?
I'm not a hockey fan. I have to admit that I just turned off the Screen Actors Guild Awards because I'm gay, and I watch the pop culture stuff pretty closely. So
pop culture is always an interesting thing to pay attention to, and I have to admit I kind of pay attention to pop culture without actually realizing it sometimes. I think by keeping an eye out on what goes on in like comic books or on the Sci-Fi Channel. It's not like I'm sitting down watching, I don't know, name a really big network TV show right now because I have no idea.
Well, there's Modern Family that won a SAG award tonight.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah,
I've actually seen a couple of episodes, and it's pretty funny. I like the fact that they don't have a laugh track.
Right. Yeah, that's a new thing in TV. You have to laugh on your own.
It's kind of a nice thing when that happens. But obviously we are here, and we have you on here because of an essay you wrote earlier this week on JimmyLaSalvia.com, where you said that it's subsequently titled "No Party," where you said that you were joining the ranks of unaffiliated voters, but you can't bring yourself to carry the Republican label anymore. Why exactly did you make this decision, and what led you to actually write a blog about it?
Yep. Well, I for a long time now, I mean, I've been thinking about this, and I haven't been satisfied and haven't felt that the Republican Party represented my principles or values. And frankly, when I talk to a lot of Republicans now, whether it's a hardcore right-winger or a squishy moderate, almost everybody I talk to agrees that they're embarrassed to be a Republican now. You see, I am a limited government conservative. And honestly, many in the leadership in the Republican Party are big government folks. They're happy to have a big government as long as they're in charge of it. And I don't tolerate bigotry of any kind. And while I certainly don't think the majority or even close to a lot of people or a few people in the Republican Party are intolerant bigots, there are a few, and they're tolerated. There's been a big call for tolerance in the party lately, and I just think we're tolerating the intolerable too much. And the reason I think that's such a big problem is that you have to win elections. And I've come to the conclusion that the tolerance of bigotry in the party is so severe that it's made the Republican Party seem so out of touch culturally, and that problem is so significant that I just don't see how they're ever going to be able to win a national election again. And I started to think about this a lot during the 2012 election. I mean, my God, Barack Obama, a failed president with a pitiful economy and an incompetent administration, won re-election. And he won re-election by convincing America that Republicans are out of touch with real life in our country today. And honestly, that's about the only thing I can think of that I agree with Barack Obama on. It is true that the leadership in the Republican Party is so out of touch that I don't think they can win another election. And the truth is, they're not only out of touch with average Americans, they're out of touch with their own base. They don't even know what their own people think. And that is what has led me to the decision that most Americans find themselves in. 42% of Americans identify as independent because neither party represents them, and they don't feel like they have a voice. And that's the group of people I find myself in. And I think that, I think I've struck a nerve, actually. I've gotten a lot of feedback and a lot of people who have said that my short blog post really hit home for them, that they don't feel a part of either party either. I mean, because let's face it, the left wing of the Democratic Party is out of touch with reality just as much as some in the Republican Party. I just think the problem is more severe on the Republican side, and I just have chosen to be with the rest of America, with most Americans.
Do you think that one of the situations that people kind of run into when they look at the leadership in the Republican Party is, as much as they like to talk about being a big tent, they're so focused on keeping their own power that they just grasp onto that and they don't listen to anybody else.
Well, I certainly think that we've come to a point in our country where we have allowed a two-party system to create a dysfunctional government. What does it tell you when the leader of the Republicans in the United States Senate, the leader of the supposedly small government party, has never had a job in his lifetime outside of government? I mean, Mitch McConnell has always, from the time he graduated from high school, been a government employee. And he's been in the United States Senate for 35 years. I mean, that's a lifetime. And then we expect him to be in touch with life in America today and represent real Americans. You know, somebody asked me, they said, well, don't you think that the Republicans can win the Senate this year? And I said, well, what difference does it make? You have an old, out-of-touch old man who, has never had a job outside of government. So what difference does it make? And I think more and more Americans are coming to that conclusion.
No, I tend to agree with you, especially in looking at that situation. I was talking to a friend of mine who has been on the show before. His name is Sean Venkman. You can find him at Mr. Mr. Fopow, Fopow. And he says the exact same thing, that he's done with the GOP because all they are just a bunch of big government conservatives, regardless as to if he agrees with them on certain positions or not.
Well, I'll tell you, one of the things that got me to really thinking about this was do you remember I guess it was back during the presidential primary season, we were having the discussion in this country about birth control. Mm-hmm. And Sandra Fluke wanted birth control in her health plan, and Rick Santorum didn't. And so that was the debate. That was the context of the debate. And I was telling people, well, now wait a second. We should be talking about whether the government should be deciding that question. And if you give the government that power, then guess what? Somebody you might not agree with may be in charge of the government. And so I was telling liberals, I said, well, the problem is you've given the government this power. So guess what? Rick Santorum may be making that decision someday. Let's not give them the power in the first place. And I was just pissed off that there were Republicans arguing this birth control issue when that wasn't the argument to be had. We could have won the argument if we had been talking about the proper role of government rather than fighting these cultural issues. And I think that that's a discussion that we need to have is, I think moral and cultural issues are important, but we need to have those in the context of what the role of government is. I think that, honestly, most Americans agree. I mean, the vast, huge majority of Americans agree and have a common vision of government. They want a government that lives within its means and doesn't spend too much money. They want America to be the beacon of freedom around the world, yet not the world's policeman. And they want the government to stay the hell out of their lives and let them pursue their American dream without interference from the government. And I think that we get bogged down in these fights where we let our cultural differences divide us when we could be united behind the discussion about what the government should do and shouldn't do, and then we can come together outside of the government sphere to solve problems. Like, I think that I'm pro-life. I'm a pro-life person, but I am not delusional. I know that abortion is legal in this country, and it's going to be legal. So I want to work with anybody who wants fewer abortions to make sure that we have fewer abortions. And I think that most of that work has to be done outside of the government. And that is the case in dozens and dozens of issues, especially the cultural issues. I mean, when we're talking foreign policy or by and large a lot of economic policy, there is a government role in some of that. But certainly foreign policy. But so many of these cultural issues, I think, need to take place out of the context of government and politics. And I think that that's an area where most Americans agree. I think we can all agree on that. Maybe not all of us, not the extremes in either part, but most people, normal people, agree on that.
One of the things that I've talked to social conservatives with, and they tend to get mad at me because on a lot of issues I agree with the problem in the sense of saying, yes, this is a problem. Yes, I agree that this is an issue. But my idea of a solution is completely different from from theirs. They want to